welcome to this interview with Melchi Dompreh, one of our artists presently on display at the Alfa Art Gallery's current exhibition, Shifted Nature. We'll be going over some of his artistic process as well as the pieces graciously contributed to our exhibition. And we'll start off pretty simple. Melchi, how are you doing today?
Doing good.
All right. So how did you come into photography as a medium, and when did you really start taking it seriously?
I came into photography 5 years ago, and that's when I started realizing how I could use a photograph to further tell the story that I wanted to tell. And I didn't really take it seriously until 2017, where in that year, that's when I took seriously the elements that photography could potentially express. So I started to, try to expand my knowledge on photography and how I could use that.
Kind of going along with that, your series, Loud Whispers, is a poetic journal that you've said is captured through film. Can you go into a little bit more detail about the series, what motivated you to start it, and how you've been continuing this journaling?
This is a visual series that is based off of the poems that I've written and continue to write. So it's basically a projection of what I feel and what I'm going through internally, but it's also where I happen to be, in my life, my current circumstances and where I'm at setting-wise. So yeah, it's pretty much a story of my life. And as far as motivation, it's just been a continuous desire of mine to become better as a person, and so that sort of seeps its way into this series. It's like a continuous expression of growth and figuring out and solving problems.
How do you think that your more poetic side really connects with the photographs in terms of using it as a poetic medium as well as just a general artistic medium? And how do you want your viewers to visualize and see the poetry that you put forth with your photographs?
It's a very critical part of what I do. I want my audience to really see the poetry in motion, through the photograph, even though, photos are still images. It's not like a motion picture film. I want that feeling, that raw emotion to still convey itself through that photograph. So, whether it's like a stanza that I pull off from one of the poems I've written, I want that to tell the story within the photo without, me putting captions to it. So yeah, it plays a huge part in what I do.
Kind of branching off of when you say each photograph can kind of feel like it comes off a stanza. When you are sending in your work for the Alfa, you actually had specifications for our arrangement. Can you explain the significance of the presentation?
Yeah, so I had to present it in a way that would really emphasize the destination in mind. So you have the goal or the place that you want to be at the very top. And so everything else around that is the subject or the character trying to work his or her way through, that roadmap, so to speak. And then, everything that they're doing is centered on that as their primary focus. So that's how I had it arranged in my mind.
Now, in several of the photographs themselves, like your photograph Y and your piece attached, people are featured, but they're pointedly not looking at the camera. Can you explain why your subjects don't face the viewer?
I don't like looking at faces of people that I take portraits of. It kind of makes me cringe because, I don't know, it just I want it to be presented in a way that would, be candid and not so forced. And I feel that I have like a long way to go as far as, that sort of side of portraiture, like when it comes to fine art, you know? And so, yeah, that's why I have them facing away the camera oftentimes. But I think it adds to the mystery. And I really feel that, instead of the viewer focusing on their face, they can focus on where the subject is looking at. And so that would, give them that would pull them into the photograph and sort of, walk themselves through the journey wherever that subject is going.
Your work, Far Away, has this very misty quality to it. Can you describe how you took the picture and what you were really saying, what poetry was in motion then?
Yeah, it was, I took that picture at the Negri Nepeti Grassland Preserve in Franklin Park. And so during that day, it was, the weather was very surreal. It was cloudy, and then the sun would peek itself in at random times. So at that point in time, it had the sun hiding behind the clouds. And so I said, oh, well, that looks like a nice picture. So I decided to take that picture. And that house is like a main point of emphasis whenever you go there. And so whenever I get the chance, I always try to capture that house in different ways, just to try to convey, the overall feeling that I'm going for.
Now, From the Past features pretty much the same setting. So is this work connected, and what's it really trying to convey sort of in relation to the other piece?
Yeah, it's connected. It's a journey of a story of a person that's trying to walk away from something, right? So it's like a bad part of their life, and you're trying to walk towards something more positive, more hopeful, right? And so, it's all related because the character is going towards that just destination. And that house that you see in the distance is, symbolic of that destination.
Now, I know this is getting a little bit at author intent sort of poetry stuff, but what do you really want to be clear to viewers as they accompany you along this poetic journey that you've put forth?
I want them, that's a very good question. I want them to try to understand, like where they're going. Is it something that could benefit others? Is it, positive? Is it hopeful? Is it something that's, everlasting? Something that would, be much more meaningful than, right now in this movement, or is it something that's as meaningless as, a new iPhone or new iPad, stuff like that, things and money. Yeah, that's what I want to try to convey.
Now, of all your works, which is your favorite or one that you have a particular attachment to? And if you don't have a favorite work, just a piece you might want to talk about in more detail.
Yeah, my favorite photo that I took in the series is me looking out into the distance in that grassland preserve. And so you see the house that I took in the other photograph, but now it's like in the far distance. It's not as close as it was in the other one, but you see me in the foreground looking out towards it. And that's where the sun peeked itself in and like lit up that middle ground of the photograph. And I thought it was an excellent photograph that, portrays the essence that I'm going for with this series. So I like that photo a lot.
How has the COVID-19 pandemic reshaped your process, if at all? How has it impacted your work?
I think it has really helped me to look deeper into what I'm trying to convey. And, instead of taking photos for Instagram or, trying to make a video about it. I wanted it to have a purpose, something that would be much more meaningful than engagement on social media. So I thought a lot about that during the pandemic, and it has really, deepened my perspective a lot.
Thank you so much, Melchi, for coming and doing this interview. I don't have any more questions. However, if there's anything you'd like to add that you thought of during the interview, things that you're working on in the future, anything that you might be showing in, feel free to share.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity to talk about this series. Well, right now I'm working on a second part of this series. This series that is going to be covered by you all and that's being presented is actually published in a book, Loud Whispers, and it's been published by Blur Books. So I'm working on like a second publication of that series. And just trying to build off what I'm still trying to convey.
Once again, thank you so much for speaking with us and sharing your insight. If you'd like to learn more about the exhibition and about Melchi, just look in the description of this video and you'll learn even more about what's going on with the Alfa and what's going on with our artists. Thank you very much.